Hello, and welcome to another edition of Marketing and Sales Mastery with JCW. We are on our next episode, and as I mentioned last time, we are going to have Jeff Farrington again. So very excited with a different hat on. Actually, Jeff, as you learned, is part of Focus CFO and is a franchisee, as a matter of fact. And Jeff, why don't you share a little bit about that?
Okay. Yeah, Focus CFO is the largest provider of fractional CFO services. We're based out of Columbus, and I opened the Michigan market in 2018. We are mostly in the Midwest and the South, but we're starting to spread throughout the entire country. We have over 300 CFOs, I think it is. And as far as area presence, my title is really a franchise. And I lost count. I think 40, 45, but
Okay.
hopefully people at corporate don't see that and my number might be off. But yeah, it's a large amount because it works. The interesting part about it is even though we're franchises, we're very much like a corporate structure, working as a team, leadership, the support, the tools. You're not left out on your own. So this conversation about marketing, I think, will fit in real well.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. So last time, and if you haven't listened to it, I recommend was a great conversation about how CFOs interact with the sales and marketing teams, right? And so very important aspects. So I'm actually excited now this time to drill down more. Like you said, and a lot of times, and I'm just going to preface this, I'm finding a lot of times people don't necessarily understand fully the differences between marketing and sales, or do you need them both, or do they both even need to interact together? So, so we're gonna kind of dive
Glad
in
to.
from the I'm excited because some people may be listening to this that are even interested in starting their own business, right? And you could start your own, start from scratch, or even go into a world of franchise, like you said, because that's certainly
Mhm.
a great way to be an entrepreneur and
Absolutely.
kind of build your way forward. So very exciting.
And
So
hopefully, I give you a perspective from the many seats I've sat in through the years, franchisor, corporate executive,
yeah.
small business owner without a franchise. I
Mhm.
did sales myself for a number of years. And then obviously, I provide CFO services. So it might not be one perspective, it might be a plethora of perspectives.
100%, which is why we love talking to people like you because it
Okay,
gives us a
thanks.
great broad view and hits many different people in many different ways. So let's start off a little bit. You had mentioned a little bit about uh, the franchise perspective, right? And the fact that they provide maybe not all, but a lot of your marketing, right? So,
Yep.
and it's because of, I'll say the brand. I would say they have a brand that they're trying to, that they want to make sure is very consistent, regardless
Yep.
of who they touch across all the different franchises.
No, it's interesting you said that because I didn't plan this, but there's my focus CFO mode. No, but that is one of the pieces of marketing, as you well know. And one of
Hmm.
the reasons you buy into a franchise is to have an expertise at the corporate level that provides brand management.
Hmm.
Because once you're known as a brand, and marketing is not the only reason, but it is
Yeah.
probably the primary reason that a brand grows. Years in market and things like that also give you brand
Hmm.
presence. That's one of the wonderful things about a franchise. So it's not just the brand, it's lead generation, it's the tools and pieces. If I was to go out on my own and put together the printed brochures or the e-brochures, there's a certain cost structure. If I'm together with 40 other people doing it, usually you can get the cost price down and or the expertise up. So there's many advantages.
Yeah, and it's really the thought that even goes into it from that higher level, right? I mean, I'll tell you, there's organizations like yours that are for marketers, right?
Yep.
Chief marketing, and it's great. There's a lot of people. I looked at it, even from the sales side. I looked at it, but I've been doing this and maybe if once I left the corporate world and went into it, I'm like, and I don't know what your cost is or whatever, but there's typically when you go into a franchise, there's a there's a franchise fee, right,
Yep.
that you're paying into, and you're giving a percentage of your revenue every month,
Yep.
which all seems fair because frankly, there's a lot of work that I do that I'm
It
like, oh
works
God,
well for me.
I would love to have some help like that. But I've struggled because through the years I've built my systems. I had a lot of the systems already. I had my process, not that I'm not updating it. I still think there's some value because just like you said, you're getting a group of people together that you're brainstorming on different ideas and coming through. And the thing I think is interesting is in your specific situation is your product, because a business has a product they're selling, and your product is really somebody else's services.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things you said in there was really caught my attention. That's the accumulation of ideas. So there's something I don't have it because I didn't know the question was coming, but
Yeah, sorry.
one of the older brochures we have, and it's all on our digital stuff too. So when I say brochure, I mean that generically between printed and electronic. But we call it a value pyramid. And I think it was one of our CFOs, or maybe it was an area president back in the day, that came up with the concept. Actually, a couple of them from what I remember. But I don't know if you know, but the worst people to put ideas together would be the CFOs.
Well,
So the CFO, the area president, leadership of the company, they got together with our marketing team at the time, and they took that idea, the concept, and basically the value pyramid says, on the bottom of the pyramid is foundation. And for us, that's, you know, the accounting, the bookkeeping, the
mhm,
insurance, the CPA work, all the things that every business has to have. The next
mhm,
level is health. That's usually where the CFO plays to increase the profit, the margins of a business. Growth, where they might try to find marketing expertise like yourself or
mhm.
sales expertise. And what do you do to invest in that growth, marketing, sales, product lines, whatever? And then the final piece of that pyramid is value. And that's making sure the organization increases in value, not just annual profit, so it can sell better whenever that transition happens. That piece I've been using for probably 5, 6 years now. And as we come up with additional marketing perspectives or marketing materials, that's still my go-to because it says the involvement of our business on each one of those levels. But to go back to what you said, it's the accumulation of all the people and all the thoughts, the CFO and area president, a marketing person,
Mhm,
leadership, to put
mhm.
those ideas into place and have a congruent message out to the marketplace. So to me, that's the epitome of marketing and working as a team.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because I've worked with clients and I tend to sometimes I'll tell the same stories over and over again, which I don't like to do, but I'm always saying that I worked for the airline and I was leading a sales team. And I think at this time I was actually a salesperson when I had the marketing team from headquarters come out, and they were like, we were blitzing a town and talking about new service that was coming out of that town into somewhere else. And he goes, I just don't understand. We have this flight that should be a premium out of here to from point A to point B. We don't seem to sell it out. He goes, I don't understand it. And I'm like, well, let's ask the customer. And he goes, well, you would just ask them? And I'm like, yeah, you would just ask them, right? Because I didn't know about that specific problem. I mean, I had a vast area. I didn't worry about a flight. Like my goal was to generate revenue, right? And I'm selling butts and seats, but not a specific plane, right? So
Right.
anyway, we actually had that conversation and asked. So I always say this is how the sales and marketing, the yin and the yang should work together, is salespeople, in this case I didn't know, but salespeople typically know the customer, they know the problems because they've had those conversations over and over again. So when you're seeing different, and this is what came to mind when you're saying, different pieces that are coming out, every year when you're building out your strategies, right? You're going like, okay, here's our new goal. What are our strategies? What are the strategies that we want to try to hit that goal with? And what problems do we need to solve to get there, right? So marketing from that perspective should be reaching out to sales, maybe even customer service, right? Customer service teams, because they're the people that are actually hearing the problems or hearing even the
And
complaints,
if you can,
right?
reach out to your top 10, 15, 20 clients and find out why they stay with the firm. Why they joined the
100%.
firm and why do they
Yeah.
stay with the firm?
Yeah, what are the words that they're using? How is that? And that's what your marketing teams do. Then once you have that information, and we call that by digging into your ideal persona or your ideal clients, right? And you're really digging into what are the problems, what are you solving, what are they thinking, feeling? Because people do act on how they think and feel, right? So from the sales perspective, when you're building out that material, the collateral, whatever you're sending out for the teams, it's always it's an ebb and flow, right? You're pulling in from what the salespeople are complain. Not, I don't want to say complaining because that's a bad word, but are saying I don't have, right?
Right.
Or we need, or we're not clear. We have this brand new flight. It's scheduled right. Well, maybe if they would have told me, I'd have been out there promoting it, right? So then I would have
I
gotten
want to
feedback.
bring, no, absolutely. I want to bring up a very old quote or saying, but it hits on it because what I was talking about was branding and what marketing provides, not even thinking it's all depending on the person, department, or resources you have, what marketing does from a research perspective. I often overlook that. I apologize. But
Yeah.
my favorite one was when it was talking about focus groups. And it was Lee Iacocca way back in the day for the young
Hmm.
people on here. Guy was in the auto industry and saved Chrysler the first time. And they were doing focus groups, and and they said this car gets a 7.2 rating from focus groups, this one
Hmm.
is 7.8, and so forth. He goes, I don't care. And they're like, what do you mean you don't care about marketing? He goes, no, I don't care about the overall rating. I want to know what car, what concept, what idea gives me most nines and tens. I don't care about the overall rating because the people that said six, seven, or eight probably aren't buying from us. The people that are passionate about our car or ideas or whatever
Hmm.
we're offering that give us a nine or a 10, those are our customers and those are the ideas that follow. So it's not just the research, but understanding the ideas behind the research to make it best work for you. And it helped him save Chrysler. And that was a big thing he said on why Chrysler was saved was how they used the focus groups listening to the customer.
That's right. That's right. It's a good point. Yep, we did that in the airline, but we called it insights. We'd have
Yeah.
quarterly insights. We would bring our top customers in with our leadership. They would say, "Here's where we're going," and then take questions and answers, right? And they would say, "Hey, why don't you whatever it is?" And then they would say, "Well, yeah, we thought about this, and here's why we can't." So now they're educated. So it's not like we're just ignoring it, right?
Mhm.
Or we're getting a lot of great ideas in which we can move forward. And I think it's super important because while I think a lot of the work that marketing can do, which is quote, I'm going to call it the busy work. It's not busy work, but it's like marketing isn't actually activity. It's the overall strategy ahead of it. Now, there's things marketing groups do, like create your social media, create your brochures, create some graphics. That is the result of an overall strategy. And if you have your strategy in line, right, then that stuff is going to push out not only company wide, but then help your sales team and people as well close those deals, more effectively. So in your experience, and maybe in the role you're in today or in past, I mean, how did you interact with marketing from I'm going to say from a lead gen perspective? Like how think of a time that it worked really well and a time it didn't work well.
Okay, so when it comes to lead generation, I tend not to be at the forefront, just like with technology. I'm not at the forefront. Lead generation, and this is true with a lot of things in sales marketing, we don't always have the answer step one. We know in finance, if you do X, Y, and Z, the result is Q.
Mhm.
It's a little more esoteric with sales and marketing sometimes. So I'm not at the forefront. So I like to listen, give feedback, and let someone else try it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then when I see the different results, like in our corporation, we had a lead gen program in started late 24 and ended
Mhm.
throughout the year. And I was one of a few that extended it. I wasn't the first one that signed up, but I was one of the few that extended it because I went back, analyzed the results, saw what the payback was on the investment, and said, yeah, it works. And not just the numbers. So the numbers were probably break even in my example, but it also gave me content for LinkedIn. It gave me outreach to conversations with probably 30, 40 people I never would have had conversations with.
Okay.
And when you do that, that's going to lead to something else down the line. So the hard data was break even-ish and
Yeah.
maybe even make a little money. It could have been a return. Yeah, it was probably about a 10% return. But
Mhm.
then you get all the non-financial things that come
Anecdotal.
along with it.
Right.
Yep, the tie-ins, and I know it was well worth it.
Right.
So that would be one that works well. But most of the time, it's I'm not at the forefront when it comes
Yeah.
to a lot of those ideas. I like to pick
Yeah.
other people's brains, see how they do it, and lean on their expertise and knowledge.
Which is interesting. I had a conversation. There was a CEO that was struggling because they got a tool that they were presenting to their salespeople, and I actually knew the tool, and but frustration from lack of adoption, right? So it's like, okay. And my questions, I never did get the opportunity to have this conversation, but how did this tool come about? Was there somebody that actually was successful with it and was the rollout? Because even rolling out a tool has marketing to it, right? I mean, we were talking about
Mhm.
how marketing is so important in so many different aspects of our business, not just to go out and get customers, but to get employee buy-in, to get, from that perspective. And this is an example of it. So, was there an example? Are people number one afraid of the tool? Because like you just said, I mean, I think you just said you weren't like always in the forefront of technology. You do a technology, you do work with it, right? But you're not the pioneer going to get it. You're saying, "Oh my God, this is
There's
really
people
working.
out there
I need
that
to
will go,
adopt
this is
it."
the latest and greatest, and then 2 months later they'll go, oh no, this is later and greater, and this one's even better.
You're just going to
Well,
let someone else
catch me
figure
on
it.
the third iteration because
Right.
that's the one we end up going
Right, because then that's when you end up going through. So in
with.
this example, was there, I mean, did someone quote sell a bill of goods that
Yeah.
sounded good, right?
No,
Or
no,
is
actually, the company rolled it out in a very good way. How the original decision was made, there was someone that was accountable. Which,
Yep.
by the way, I think that's an important part of management leadership is somebody has to be accountable, not a
Yep.
team. Whenever I see a team accountable, that means no one's accountable. So someone is accountable with input from multiple people. And then they tried it with four franchisees. They tried it for 3 months. They had pretty much a mirrored result of what our overall program was when 20 of us rolled it out.
Okay.
So it was actually a good rollout. It gave us a good indication of what to be expected. So I think that was a good and proper way. Now,
Right.
you asked me originally what was a good one, what was a bad one. I'd say that's a
Yeah.
good one. Hopefully, not too many people from my company are looking at this one, but a bad one. So we get printed brochures a couple years ago, or
Mhm.
it's the sleeve thing. You see printed stuff in a
Yeah.
sleeve, and printed brochures are going by the wayside. But some people still like them. I still bring them.
Still have
Those that
them.
want them, great. Those that don't can toss them in the garbage. But I think they still serve a purpose for the near term. Anyways, in this brochure, and it was a nice setup. The materials they had in it and everything, except for one thing. The slot for the business card,
Didn't.
our business cards are vertical,
Oh,
and there's issues there too
yep.
because of the
Yep.
size of the fonts. But the slot in this brochure, and it came out at the same time, are
Yep.
horizontal. So you open it up in your card. Somebody should have seen that,
Mhm.
before it got okay and go, okay, you got a vertical business card
Right.
and a horizontal slot, and they came out at the same time. Something that can be easily rectified. Again, in the big scheme of things, not that important.
Right.
But that
But
even little things like that lead to increased or decreased credibility in the people that are
yeah.
accountable for making decisions.
To me, that sounds like, and I don't know because I don't know the situation. It sounds like somebody had this project and somebody else had this
I
project.
have no
Yeah, I
idea, and
mean,
I'm not getting in the middle of it.
yeah, I mean, no, 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 no. I mean, it's like it happens, right? Because the thing is it's stuff like that happens to us all the time. The
But this
question,
is what I'm saying. It
yeah,
shouldn't. And I've been
well,
an executive, I've owned larger companies. Somebody at the end of the day, even if you have two people working on the project,
it's
one person, one of them or a third person,
right.
has to be accountable for the final product
Final,
and
and
how they all align.
frankly, even at that point, teamwork, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
how many times? I mean, I'll tell you what, I am, and I'll tell you right now, I am the worst proofer, especially of my own stuff. And I think a lot of us are like that, right? I read or I see exactly what I think should be there, not what is actually there, right? So, but even from that perspective, if this whole package went to multiple people, just to kind of look through. Maybe even it's, hey, Jeff, you're a user
Yeah.
of it.
And again,
Can you
in the
look at,
big scheme of things, it's
yeah,
minute.
it is,
But
but
that's just an example you have for the good and the bad. So I give
yep,
you both.
nope, and it's good. And here's the thing with any program that you do, and this is it. Marketing, Marketing is it should have numbers. We talked about that last time, right? We talked about the fact that there should be accountability with marketing. Marketing should be a revenue generator, right? But it's not always absolute, right? So it's you got to get out, you got to try some programs, you got to get feedback, you got to make tweaks to this, that, or the other thing. Might be the channels you're going after. It might be the verbiage that you're using to connect with the buyers, right? And make some adjustments to it. You've got to always be looking at it. But the thing is whenever you make even a mistake or make even learn from it, right? I mean, it's like first of all you got to
Own
tweak
it,
it.
be accountable, move
Always
on.
be accountable and just go like, oh my gosh, okay, now I have. And believe me, we've had it in our company too, where we've done stuff, we've pushed it out, and we had this whole process where we would do the proofing, right? I'm just going to go back to my weakness, so I had to have other people go out and proof. Well, we had been like pushing so many things out, some steps got missed. Right. And so guess what? We don't look, so you gotta kind of make sure you're dotting those I's and crossing those
I
T's.
used to work with a CPA firm as chief operations officer. That's
Hmm.
one of the problems during the busy season. Not that the people don't care, but your workload is so heavy.
Right.
Proofing of it is probably, one of the issues that comes up from time to
Right.
time.
Yep.
As simple as, I remember one partner going, if we can't get our client's name spelled correctly, what credibility do we have on the numbers that we put in front of them?
Hmm.
Because the CPAs are used to double checking the numbers, not double checking the
Checking
name on
the
the front
name.
of the
Yeah.
file.
Yeah.
But it's just little things like that. Again, it goes to credibility.
Yep, that's right. It's in and it's yeah, credibility, trust. And I even say that too, like we're going to have a conversation probably next month on confidence. And confidence sometimes within an organization is about trust, right? And it's about trusting or having confidence in the services that are being provided, right? So that you feel confident in going out and selling and from that
You have to believe
perspective.
in what you're presenting to people.
Always, always, yeah. So now have you so it sounds like from a lead gen perspective, I mean, you said you're not always on the forefront, but have you ever had times where you have maybe battled, but maybe this isn't going to be your case because it's not always, right? Where you feel like leads they're giving you aren't qualified.
Trying to think of anything offhand because my initial response is absolutely.
Example, yeah.
Even now, we have a corporate website, and I was given one right before the holidays, but it wasn't corporate's fault. Someone just, tied into our website. It was me for not screening the next steps before I took a
Mm,
2-hour drive to go meet with them.
got it. Yeah,
So
interesting.
it's not always the lead fault. Sometimes it's how we screen things afterwards. But no, I mean, for a big part of my career, I was in staffing. So,
Okay.
just like sales and marketing have a little bit of this, you have recruiters and salespeople.
Yeah.
Well, our client needs this. Why aren't you providing the right candidates for it? And the candidate side goes, well, if it was a better job or a better company, I could give you better candidates. And it happens in most industries. I had one person work for me. She goes, if it wasn't for the clients and the candidates, this would be a great job.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not how it works in the real world. So all you can do is try to improve it. But I go back to, and I played some sports back in the day, and I relate so much of this back to sports. So the football season, NFL just ended, and when a quarterback throws the ball and the wide receiver misses it, and they do a post game interview. Jared Goff, why didn't Jameson Williams catch the ball? You don't hear Jared Goff go, yeah, I threw it there. If he caught the ball, maybe we would have won the game. No,
Yeah.
because you lose all credibility, you
Yeah.
lose all team effort. So
Right.
whether it's sales marketing or whatever
Mhm.
groups or functions or people within a company, if you're the one pointing the finger at someone else, shame on you, because you probably should look in the mirror first and,
Right.
and just follow, the better sports people. And I'm not talking about the most talented ones. I'm talking about the ones that have the most class, the best leaders, because
Mhm.
they never point the finger at someone else. It's always, well, the field goal kicker missed the kick.
Mhm.
And Jared Goff would say, well, I guess next time we should make a touchdown so we don't have to worry about that. That's my fault for not scoring
That's
a
right.
touchdown.
Yeah, it's a good
But that's how a leader reacts.
right. Yep.
Even
And
if he might be grinding in his head as he go to bed, gosh darn it, why didn't we do this? You never point the finger outward, you point it inward. So whenever I have two groups that, are clashing on
Mhm.
something, that's the perspective I try to take with them.
And I think it's dialoguing back and forth too, right? So just making sure like, and we talked in the last segment, we talked about dashboards, right? And we mentioned the fact of, okay, there, and this is goes into, and I was kind of prodding it a little bit again, like marketing's not giving us qualified leads, and marketing is saying, well, sales isn't following up on them, right? And we said it could be both. But the
Hmm.
question is are you keeping track of those numbers, right? And and then diving into that. So okay, Jeff, I've given you all these leads and you think that they're not right. Tell me what you're getting. Because maybe my verbiage is off. Maybe the what the content I'm producing is not attracting the right people, or maybe I'm using the wrong channels, or maybe we're going into an area that we're targeting something. We've got an ad that's focused in a certain market that is never going to give us what we want, right? So whatever that is, you've got to have those conversations and take them seriously. But then you do have to see from the, because I've seen this where you give a lead, and is your sales team prepared to follow up appropriately? You kind of did something almost opposite, right? In the example where you said you called on someone that shouldn't have been called on because you didn't really pre-qualify them, right? So you're like, shoot, that was my bad. Better than having a qualified lead not get a phone call because you were too busy worrying
Oh,
about
that's
what Christmas
unacceptable.
presents you have.
That's yeah, that's unacceptable. No, I
Right?
mean it's my father used to always say perspective.
Yep.
And the saying coming out, he was in the Korean War, and he comes out, he goes, there was the man that always complained because he had no shoes until you met the man that had no feet.
Yeah.
Sit in someone else's chair for a while.
Yep.
The wide receiver, maybe you didn't get the ball right here because the quarterback was being chased by a 250-pound human being that
Right.
wanted to kill him. I
Yeah.
mean, sit in someone else's chair, and you have that dialogue, as you said, dialoguing. Have the conversation. Well, what is it that makes it difficult for you to do such and such? And I'm going to say, Cheryl, what is it that makes it difficult for you to do such and such? And
Yeah.
when you have the perspective of the person you're dialoguing with, when you can stand in their shoes,
Yep.
you can get a better perspective on maybe why
Mhm.
things happened the way they happened, and be more forgiving, but also give better insight.
Yeah, better
How
insight.
they
Yeah,
can help
on
you.
both cases. I had a client that I was working with, and I said, I really just need to talk to your salespeople. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
want to understand. I want to have a con. And he's like, oh, Cheryl, they're kind of transactional. I don't think they're gonna know your answers. I'm like, I bet you they do. You know what I mean? I bet you they actually have a lot of perspective, especially the ones that are closing over and over and over again. They may not be able to articulate it in the way that we can ask questions and get it out of them. You know what I mean? Because they're not thinking with our marketing hats. They're thinking with their sales
And
hats,
that's
right? So
perfectly fine.
yeah, it's okay. It's
When
why
you
we have
get
two different
perspective from the
teams.
team, from leadership,
Yeah.
from your teammates in marketing, maybe someone else, a client perspective, and you get those different points of contact or
Hmm.
different data points, as we say, it only leads to better decision if you know what you're doing.
Yep, better decisions, better programs, and
Yep.
kind of goes through. But anyway, well, thank you again, Jeff. I appreciate
You're
the
welcome.
time you've spent with
It was
us.
always a pleasure. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And look forward to seeing you again at our next Vistage meeting.
Awesome. You
All
have a
right.
great day.
Yeah, thanks.